what is separating those who survive from those who are becoming casualties of a downish economy?
You know, I've seen a lot of folks, even in the mastermind, who have really doubled down on like, I'm going to spend way more on growth. This comes down to mindset in life, right? Like the people who run scared, the people who run negative, the people who think pessimistically tend to get what they think is going to happen. It's my mindset right now. Is like outside of physical ailments, someone in my family dying, or like I have some sort of mental incapacity of some sort, like no matter what, I will be fine. There's no reason to run scared. And if anything, this is an opportunity to go big.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball.
Freshly back from his Southern California escapades, Joey Gilkey is back in the house. So you know it is time for another episode of the Best Damn Agency Podcast, your place for unscripted, unfiltered, no bullshit conversations about all things digital agency ownership of life, and of course, agency sales. I got all the way through the intro, so you know it's going to be a good day. Joey, you're back with us, man. How are you, sir?
I am good. My head is currently on my neck, but it is spinning 360.
Oh. Okay.
My head hasn't fallen off, I should say, but it is on. It's still appended.
Yes.
It's just spinning around.
That's good news.
Yeah, it is good.
Not only is your head on your neck, you have some sweet headphones that you're sporting today.
Dude, this isn't the goofiest thing. I could not find for the life of me the same ones that you have on. I have a bunch of them, but they're all like the iPhone ones with the iPhone adapter. I'm like, dude, you guys are ridiculous.
I think that's what disc jockeys wear. I believe that's what they call you people.
Yeah, pretty. I'm here for it.
Dude, so you're back fresh off a vacation to the glorious sunny skies and white sandy beaches of San Diego. Did you actually vacation? So that's my question. First one to you is, did you actually vacation? And what does a successful vacation look like for the Gilkey family?
Surprisingly, I did. I did not I didn't have a single meeting while I was there, despite all the things that ensued. And, well, yeah, we can talk about it in a minute. But, yeah, so despite all of that, I did not take a single meeting. I did not bring out my laptop except for to approve a press release.
Nice.
And, yeah, dude. So it was good, man. We were there for like 6 nights, 7 days, something like that. So we went. So my wife is pregnant with our second boy. We due in October 10th. And so we're kind of getting to that 30-something weeks where they don't let you fly. And so we're like, let's squeeze in a trip. And so I went to San Diego and stayed in this pretty baller house. It was awesome. And we spent a lot of time.
How was your extra bed for yourself and the extra AC that you paid for?
It was worth every penny. It was worth it. And my kid actually is interesting. So they said they had a pack and play for my 3-year-old. Okay. And he sent me the link, but he sent me the wrong link of the wrong size. And so when we got there, I was like, oh, my kid's literally touching the top and the bottom. And so, but they had bunk beds. And so we put him in the bottom of a bunk bed and we kind of created like a little fort for him. So we thought it was super cool. And so it was his first time sleeping in a big boy bed. And he actually did it and didn't get out, didn't cry. He was perfully fine. So I was like, oh shit.
Dude,
like,
that's awesome. So you guys have turned the corner.
We just moved him. Yeah, we just moved him straight into big boy bedtime on vacation. So, but it's good. We spent a lot of time with Rachel's family, our mutual best friend, Ellis Hammond. I saw him twice.
Cool.
It was a good time.
Do you ascribe to the parenting methodology of locking your children's doors in the middle of the night? Is that that's like a thing?
Well, we've not gotten to big boy bedtime yet, and he has not proven that he gets out of bed. And so, as of right now, no. We do have not locked, but like the like the spinny things that go on top of handles that don't let kids. Yeah. So we have that for like if my wife doesn't have a nanny or a babysitter over, and she just needs a break, she can put him in the room. He can play with his toys, and she just puts those on.
Dude, if you think about all of the things we're seeing in children, like, God, our kids are so jacked up, anxiety, suicide rates, not to make light of them.
Sure.
But you think about it, like, we're telling our kids shit about like the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and basically lying to them their entire childhood. We lock them in their room so that they can't get out.
Yep.
They go sit in a classroom for 9 hours a day. They don't see their parents. It's like, no wonder that these kids have a hard time. And then
it's
we
weird.
blame them for it.
And then we throw them in front of a TV and
force feed them genetically modified food. And
that's wild
stuff.
It is wild.
So you mentioned I'm not gonna make anybody else wait. I'm not gonna make you wait. You mentioned the news, the things that are happening. There's a very big thing happening at Apex Revenue for you and your business world, business life. You successfully completed an acquisition of a company, one that is very strategic, very exciting. There was a press release that you mentioned. So to those listening, lay out who you acquired, some of the details, and then I want to get into what this means and what it looks like moving forward.
Totally. So we have for probably 18 months, I would say, worked with this company as like a strategic partner of some sorts or like a vendor that we would use for certain things. You've heard me talk about them quite a bit the past few weeks. A lot of it's because I've become a lot more intimately involved with them, knowing that this was coming. But we acquired Phone Ready Leads, which is co-founded.
I might cut that out of the podcast.
That was actually pretty good.
That's from my middle school ministry days.
Yeah, so co-founded by Ryan Racert and Justin Middleton. We've been talking about it for a while. And we finally got to the deal that made sense for everyone. And then the acquisition happened late Monday, the 14th.
While you were in San Diego.
Whilst I was in San Diego. Yeah, I mean, it was basically there were some emails back and forth with attorneys, and I had to I guess I did have to get on a phone call to wire money. But other than that, it was pretty seamless. So yeah, the what people think is the hard part, which is getting the deal done, finding the money, all that kind of stuff. The real hard part is, okay, well, you did it. Now what? What's the actual integration look like with their team and your team? And, they have 75 employees on the international side, another 10 to 12 on the U.S. side. And so it's not a small machine to integrate to ours.
I was on a call with them both this morning, and they looked richer.
Yeah, I think they feel richer probably.
There was a glow.
I think they well, what's cool about them, and so it's a strategic acquisition for the buyer and the seller, which is the perfect relationship. Is so not only is it strategic for us that we get to now leverage something that we have white labeled to some degree, or we have used and been powered by on some of our offers. Not only is that our strategic, but for them, it moves them, and I love how Ryan kind of phrased this, it moves them out of tactics, and it moves them into strategic world of sales. And so, whereas before they were essentially just a provider, right? No different than if you were to go, they were looked at no different than if you were to go pull a list off of Apollo, right? It's nowhere near like that, but just kind of seems that way. To now, it's it's brought into VPs of sales and sales teams and sales operations folks that are powered by this thing. It just makes a ton of sense. And so, and they get to focus.
Yeah, it's good.
I was going to say, and they get to focus and move out of that tactics world where they're just kind of trying to make it, as a tech-enabled service that is still looked at somewhat as a tactic, and there's an education process to now they get to focus on okay, we get to build Apex, and PRL is just a part of Apex.
That's awesome, man. Well, one, congratulations officially
Thanks.
On the air here.
Yeah.
And then two, I think you sort of said this, but leveraging Phone Ready Leads as a part of the motor, it's almost like I view it like this. So the sales operation is the engine. We've talked about it like an engine, or maybe it's a car or whatever.
Yep.
But let's call it an engine. Yep. And you're going to put gas in it. The gas is the data, right? The fuel is the data. Yep. Phone Ready Leads is it's like using jet fuel or nitrous, right? And if you're racing a car that doesn't have it, and you're versus a car that does have, it's not even the same race. The race is not fair.
Yes. Everyone
so
puts
people
gas
are starting
in.
To see.
I love that analogy because I think it's everybody puts gas in. PRL is basically the nanoparticle filter that pulls out all the impurities. that like the final product that comes out is that pure data that you need. And so it makes everything more efficient, everything more profitable. You have very little wasted space in sales. So
here's what's great. One thing I love about how you operate is you will take that line that I will never think about again, and that's going to become content that's going to be used in a sales pitch. That's going to you take those things and then you ruminate on them and then you use them.
Yes.
Which is pretty great.
Hell yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the acquisition? I mean, it's like, I think you said it. It's like, what now? We got to go do the thing, right? You made a big investment in this company, one that you are convinced is going to pay dividends. But like, what's it take now to maximize the opportunity that is Apex plus the PRL microfilter nitrous stuff?
Yeah, no, I think I don't have a whole lot to offer outside of like I've had a lot of people. Excuse me. I've had a lot of people ask like why, like it doesn't, to some people don't understand my business and their business intimately. It doesn't make a ton of sense. And so it's actually funny because I put a post out on LinkedIn today and it's doing pretty well. It's like 10,000 impressions or whatever. Sorry, I'm dying. A little coughing session over here. But I wrote out like the 5 reasons why I bought them. And the only reason I'm sharing this is because for those who are listening, there's this fear of acquiring a company, right? It's negotiating the deal, it's finding the money, it's okay after post exit or post acquisition. What does the integration of that company into yours look like? How does the culture fit work? And most people think about it in one of 2 ways. One is either strategic or one is financial. And I think most of us make financial decisions. What are you smiling about?
I'm sorry. I'm listening to you. I wanted to go read your post.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the dialogue between minuscule internet troll Jack Frimston and our friend Ryan Reisert, who have somehow become arch nemeses.
Same with another guy, Shane something. Dude, I'm gonna roast that guy in a minute. But let me finish this part.
Haters.
So what's really funny is
sorry,
not funny, but the point of that is like when you think about it, a lot of us think about it strictly from a financial perspective of like, hey, if I put money in, when do I get money out? But one thing to also understand, let's just take the financial and look at it for a second. If you were to put money into a real estate deal, right, your expectation of a return is 10 to 17%. 17 would be balling. 25 if you get like strike gold with an Airbnb. But somewhere between that 8 and 15, 18, 17. But like in business, like it is a very realistic world where you can get a 40% return in year one. You can get a 70%. You can get a 200% return. Like I will probably make all my money back in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a small amount. And so a lot of it is don't just think about it from a financial, like I have to get my money back as quickly as possible, but think about it like this is an investment. Like you're investing in your business, you're investing in your enterprise value and so on. But I wrote out 5 reasons why I did the acquisition. And there's probably more smaller ones. But the first one is, one, there's nowhere else that you can get your sales team's lifetime data scoring that will tell you who of your prospects will convert and where. I wanted the IP, I wanted the team, and I wanted the processes. Number 2, we have 2 extremely unique offers that are powered by PRL data. We wanted to put a moat around those offers and block competition from leveraging the data. Basically, we wanted to be able to say yes or no to whoever can use PRL so that we can block out competition and maintain our moat. 3, the team. So I wanted Ryan and Justin on our team. 1, because they're a good culture fit, but 2, their skill sets are just savage.
Yeah, they're ballers, dude. The more I've gotten to know both of them, I mean, yeah, dude, they're both amazing at what they do. And what's funny is, like, Ryan, I knew that Ryan was the face of cold calling for a season, kind of legendary in that space. Obviously, what they've done with the tech and the platform is incredible. Justin's a hell of a cold caller too, man. The
Justin's
guy can
savage.
Write content. He books meetings. Like he's pretty killer. He's leading that team, which is amazing.
Yep. And so not only do I want them to help with the transition, but I want them to be part of Apex and building us, and they want to be. Number 4 is it allows us for more client success and LTV. So the more the Apex can control for our clients as it relates to sales, the more success they're going to have.
Yep.
And for us, we want to help control their sales leadership and strategy, control their lead generation, control and help with their sales hiring process, control with their profitability, and now control the data process from end to end, because data is, like you said, it's the gas in the whole thing. If it's wrong, then the whole machine's broken.
Yep.
And then lastly, offer expansion. Plain and simple, there's a lot of interesting offers that we can roll out now that we have access to it at cost, which I think is a big important thing. You know, I've cut my ability to use PRL in half in terms of what it costs me to use, because I now just pay it at cost because I own it.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, just think about it from that perspective. If you're thinking about acquisition, for those of you guys who are listening to learn something, I think about it. If you are looking at it from a financial perspective, look at it like an investment, right? An asset. Yeah. But secondly, what strategically can you now do now that you have it in your ownership? And think about it, like who are smaller vendors you use, smaller contractors, smaller companies, equal companies to you, strategic partnerships that maybe you could potentially strike a deal with.
Dude, you know who we met that does this just as well, if not better than anybody else? And I don't know if some of this in your brain started to shift this way when we met this person, is Scott Graydon. Who's got that massive short-term rental portfolio, but he's basically vertically integrated in that he's built out companies or bought companies all the way across the buyer experience or buyer journey. Like basically he's bought every service that he's ever paid for.
Yeah,
or built every company he's ever paid for.
No, when it clicked was at our mastermind event in Tahoe. Funny enough, it was like you and I throw
what part of that?
You and I host these things, but like I get to learn just as much as everybody else, right? I think it was when Vinny was talking about his mindset shift. Mind shit. Speaking of, Vinny had a big move recently. Anyway, so Vinny Fisher, CEO, fully accountable, multiple-time 8-figure founder, like 4-time actually, came and spoke at the mastermind because we only bring the best. But Vinny was talking about how he's had a mindset shift as he has looked to be more strategic and potentially enter like the private equity advisory world. He's spent a lot more time with, you know, the larger investment bank type of folks, and they've done a really good job of re-educating him and changing his mindset around debt and understanding leverage and understanding investing in private equity. And when he started talking about that, it wasn't something he specifically said, but it started getting me in mind, like, where's my mindset not been the right way around an acquisition? Why do companies sell? Why would they sell? That was something Vinny did talk about. And where can we capitalize on what they want in their business to sell for a strategic reason, or they're done, or they're tired, they want a liquidity event. And how can I then attach that to what we're doing as we're kind of on a rocket ship and we both win off of that situation? So.
Okay, so here's the follow-up question then is, on the back of all of that fun, exciting news, is what's the next one? Have you already thought about it? Do you have, as you think through where that unique opportunity and leverage exists, what's the next domino to fall? Can you even say it, or maybe even just talk about the direction that you would go in if there is one?
Yeah, I've probably got like 2 directions. I'll say the biggest thing that I know that I have seen is I've seen companies who grow through acquisition. And if they do it too fast and the integration of those companies into the main conglomerate doesn't go well, then it's a shit show for everybody.
Smart.
And so I don't want to think about, I do want to think about it. I don't want to act on what I would like to do next. Now that I've done it though, like I'm okay with like micro acquisitions where it's like a small team of 5 people or something that just do something that's really valuable. So, there's one specifically I'm talking to right now that I'd be interested in kind of doing like a micro acquisition of.
Cool.
And they really specialize in more like account-based email. And so I might bring them into the fold. We'll see. But I think the biggest, like if I look down the road and I'm like, all right, Joey, you want to build the 9-figure thing. Like there has to be tech involved, like a legitimate tech product. And if we can take RevOps, SalesOps, the data that powers it, and we can actually do the sales engagement platform the right way, Right. I think Outreach.io they're not doing it the right way. I think that even Apollo, as much as I've developed a relationship with them, they're not doing it the right way. Like all these companies are building sales engagement platforms for how they used to work, but they're not building it for the future. And so I think that would probably be a play I'd be really interested in. Either acqui-hiring a small, already existing. So there's softwares out there like Smartly.ai or Instantly that are like good email platforms. But email is not the only part of the picture. Obviously, you need to have phone. And so there's other phone tools like FrontSpin or Phone Burner or whatever, where they all have like the features you want, but none of them have all the features of all the things. And so
yeah,
that would be a huge game changer, is if we could own that. Ooh, there is one software. I won't say which one it is, but I legit could buy it tomorrow if I wanted to. I think. Ryan thinks I could. But it's a software that is essentially allowing remote sales teams to operate in a call blitz format. And
like
so
like the synergy or momentum and team nature of it?
We're all making our calls right now. Let's just say there's 20 people on here. We're all making calls. The moment someone connects, they have like the dialer attaches to the system. It's almost like a Zoom, right? A Zoom room or a Meets room or whatever. And everyone's dialing, but we're all hanging out talking, boom, boom, boom. The moment you connect your screen, it kind of throws like a light overlay over you that says Joey's connected. And you can click listen and listen to him talk.
That's awesome.
But he can basically have his call, and then when he hangs up, he can be like, yeah, that was a great call, blah, blah. And he could like do the synergy thing again. So
Dude, I like that a lot. Yeah. All right, how about this?
Okay.
How about fantasy sports for outbound dialing?
Fantasy sports for outbound. Oh, like basically you can like.
So what if you had this platform and you could, there was XYZ
make
business
wagers.
And ABC business, and they had a 40-person call team and they had a 20-person call team, and you could make wagers on who would book first or who would book the most meetings, but you're able to track it in live time. It's like
that would be dope. That'd be kind of fun.
What esports? It's like sports for sales. That's probably a terrible idea, but it kind of
no, dude. Esports for sales would actually. Ryan, I think's done some sort of like cold calling league or something,
like a YouTube league. Yeah. I've seen it.
I think if someone could do that really well, I think you could have a ton of fun around that. It actually wouldn't be a bad promotion to get really solid dialers on the team.
That could be our next project. Did you see the content production idea that we were bouncing back and forth in the Slack channel after we added Ryan and Justin?
What was it, the 4x4x48? What was that? So I feel like I was on the plane when it happened, and maybe like a couple messages didn't make it through, but I saw something. What was it?
So it kind of like materialized. Ryan made that post with him with like the nose breather apparatus.
Oh yeah.
And then somebody was like, when we gonna ruck? Because Matt's all into rucking. And then I said, I was like, well, when we planning like a badass run or something like that? And then somebody dropped, let's do the 4x4x48, that's Goggins' challenge. It's 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Gross.
So you end up running 48 miles in 48 hours.
One, like as a person or as a team?
Yeah, no, each person.
Oh, sounds awful.
So Ryan said, I'm in. Justin said, I'm in. I'm sure Matt would be in because I'm learning that dude's a little bit of a psychopath and will do anything.
Matt's awesome.
And I love him for it.
Dude, Matt has brought like the best energy.
The big cheese energy.
That big cheese energy, dude.
He's bringing it. So the idea was, what if we all rallied, say in Knoxville, we did the 4x4x48 challenge, but in those interim blocks, but in the interim blocks, we were dialing. We were trying to book FTAs, and it was a challenge of who could book more meetings in between their 4 mile laps, because you end up having like 3 hours in between each run.
What if we flew like every
PJ.
one of our? Well, yeah, PJ. But I'm saying, what if we flew every one of our like Uber SDRs?
Yes, and we're all in a big ass room dialing. Dude, it'd be awesome.
That'd be sick. That'd be some sick content.
It's like, how did you blow $100,000 in one day? Well, we flew 40 people,
40 dialers, 40 SDRs and sales reps, and then like each of us led a team.
Dude, I like this idea enough that I will happily, as somebody who has planned masterminds for 30 CEOs, I will spearhead the endeavor if you give me the budget.
Bro, I got to figure out the fucking budget. That would be so expensive.
All right. Well, we'll look at it. Okay. We're going to talk sales stuff. Excited for your acquisition. For those who want to learn more, I mean, the best way is probably to go find the press release, which maybe we can just link in the... Sure. This is going live this week, which is nice. So this will go live in a few days. I will link the press release in the description. So go check that out, and then hit us up if you want to talk to us about PRL or fractional sales leadership. All right, let's talk sales. So I think we've asked every sales related question in we've approached it from every angle that you could possibly approach it in the last 2 years of this show.
That's probably true.
So my brain, this is not like a great lead into a great segment. This is just me saying, like, for me, I'm trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel and figure out, like, what are the topics that we haven't talked about in a long time. So
should you use someone's pronouns when you call?
Oh, I like that question, actually.
Do you really? That's such a stupid question.
Should you do it?
Yes. Because it's a fucking minority. It's a very small minority that doesn't...
Zed?
Zed. Yeah. No.
Dude, okay. We're down a rabbit hole here, but I'm talking to my dad yesterday, and he's like, hey, so-and-so listens to your show. And I'm like, I'm not going to out this person on the air.
Sure.
And I'm like, no way. Like this, it's a person that, one, is kind of high profile, and two, I'm like, why would they listen to our show?
I don't know.
He's like, he loves your show, but he said you're a pastor and you need to drop the profanity. And I'm like, I think that's hilarious.
That is so funny. What'd you say? I'm not a pastor anymore. I'm a VP of sales.
I immediately texted said person and said, heard you want to be a guest on our podcast.
Oh, that's great.
And
what did he say?
We'll see if we can. He said, love the show. That was it. That's all I said.
Got it. Fine.
We'll see. All right.
I'm not a pastor, a while back, so I can say it all I want.
Well, yeah, and anyway, that's a discussion in and of itself, because I think differently than I once had thought.
Cool.
A long time ago, this is probably 12 months ago, maybe a little bit before that. You did a video on your farm that I recently went back and watched, and you're walking around, and you were like, here are the 5 things that you need to know to not be one of the casualties of the recession that's about to hit as an agency.
Yep.
And I think we're starting to see agencies fold in on themselves that are not well supported by a sales team. They don't, they've been super referral led. They don't have the mechanisms that they need internally to make it. So I said a few things, but I would like for you to get more specific.
Okay.
As agencies are dying off, and it's happening maybe more slowly than I thought it would, but we're seeing it.
Yeah.
What is separating those who survive from those who are becoming casualties of a downish economy?
I think that, the obvious one is I think that there are a lot of folks who are doubling down on investing in growth in this time. And they're not shying back saying, oh, no one's buying right now. I'm just going to kind of hunker down and I'm going to focus on retention. It's like, no, yes, you should focus on retention, but that is a ridiculous, you're still going to lose people. And so if you just focus on retention, right? So I think it's, I've seen a lot of folks, even in the mastermind, who have really doubled down on I'm going to spend way more on growth. So that's certainly an attribute I'm seeing. I do think that retention is probably the next best important thing. I think that I'm seeing folks who are really trying to have that. We actually had it today in the mastermind. It was in the all hands. We talked about, some retention strategies. And of course, we've got people like Chris Dreyer who has an entire document of retention strategies, which is amazing.
He's wicked smart.
Yeah, he's just a wicked researcher too. It's amazing. He applies it all. So I'd say that. I would say the people who, this comes down to mindset in life, right? The people who run scared, the people who run negative, the people who think pessimistically tend to get what they think is going to happen, right? And I think simultaneously, it's my mindset right now. I was like, dude, nothing can truly, outside of physical ailments, someone in my family dying, or like I have some sort of mental incapacity of some sort, like I'm gonna be fine. Like no matter what, I will be fine. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case, like there's no reason to run scared. And if anything, this is an opportunity to go big. It's like if I blow this thing up and I ruin everything, like dope, dude. I'm still gonna go make $500,000 this year, like doing nothing. So I'm fine. I will be fine. I will always be fine unless those other factors, make their way into my life somehow, and that will be just God ordained. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's the people who run scared typically get what they run from.
Yeah, you're manifesting the reality that you're running from, which is kind of hilarious.
Well, it's that whole like buffalo cow thing we've talked about before. It's like run to the storm, and the storm will pass much quicker. And usually, and the other part of this analogy that we have, it's not part of the analogy, but I've added it, is like usually the most beautiful weather is right after the storm. It's like
super true.
It's so true. And so it's like, hey, like know that that's the destination possibility. And so run at the storm instead of run from it, because you're going to experience the storm and experience it for much longer if you run from it, because it will eventually catch you. So
let me give you a perfect example. So fight, flight, or freeze, right? Like when you're scared, I think there's probably one of three reactions. And a lot of times I tend to freeze. Like I get in my own head. And I think you've talked about how like your mindset in business is one that you wish you could apply to fitness.
Yes.
I think my mindset in fitness is one that I wish I could apply to business. And I'm actually working on that. I literally messaged Chris during our call today, and I was like, I'll make a deal. I will help you get incredibly fit if you help me get incredibly good at business. From a mindset perspective, like nice. I know what I need to do. It's just a matter of like applying it consistently and changing the way that I think. And so my tendency is to freeze. Well, there's parts of the mastermind right now that are not going the way that I would want it to go. In that, it's still an incredibly high caliber community. There's still value being created, but the buy-in is not now what it was when we launched, right? Meaning like guys are maybe not as invested. They're not showing up to meetings as often. And granted, we still had 16 guys show up, a bunch of whom are 8 figures. Like there's value there. It's just not what it was.
Sure.
And so what I see is I'm failing. I'm not curating this community. It's going to fall apart. It's going to deteriorate. Like I start to go worst case scenario, which we've talked about on the show before. And so what do? I could run headfirst at the issue. I could tackle the issue. And it's by applying that force, it will not get worse. It will get better, or it'll get worse faster, and then it blows up, whatever. But what I tend to do is I tend to just like freeze up.
Yep.
And so I told you before today's meeting, and it's something that I'm not super experienced in, like having those kind of conversations. So I definitely could have been more pointed in what I said, but I basically walked in and I was just straight up like, hey,
that's great.
We've lowered our standard for what it means to be a part of this group. And I'm not going to let that continue to happen. And so we're going to have one-on-one conversations, and you're either going to elevate your investment of energy into this group, or you're not going to be a part of it anymore. Yep. And so I think for me, like that is an attempt to push against my natural tendency to freeze or to flight, and to kind of fight through a situation that's uncomfortable. And I think I've talked to a lot of CEOs who actually have that same mentality.
Yeah,
it's freeze. I could think of like 5 to 10 people right now whose businesses are not where they want it to be, and so they just kind of ignore it, or they pretend that it's not as broken as it is, and then they get exposed.
Yep, or they get like legitimately frozen, where it's like they just start thinking of all the options they could do, and they do nothing ever.
Guilty of that as well.
Yeah, me too. Well, no, one thing I'm not guilty is I will always do something. It's just not always the right thing or the right order.
You will do something with incredible tenacity and speed, which, it'll break or it won't, which is great. All right. Cool conversation in the mastermind dialogue today. I thought it was really cool to watch a few guys uncover services that they're not currently selling that they should be selling.
Yep.
So even to the point where one guy was like, hey, show my ignorance here because I'm way invested in this one area. Like, what's programmatic? And guys are like, dude, you would crush programmatic. And they just start, you need to talk to this person and this person. Should more agencies be thinking through how they can expand what they're selling? And how can you do that in a way that's strategic and not just shiny object syndrome?
Yeah. I think yes. So to answer your question, yes. But my caveat to that is, what do you want? Right. And so people who are listening to this is like, ultimately, like one of the guys who asked the question, he's doing $8.3 million in revenue. He grows 20% year over year. He's forecasting it to 10 next year. All good things. But his goal is not to stay there. His goal is to get to a certain level, maybe have an exit that's substantial size. And so his answer to my answer to him would be maybe different than the guy who's just like, dude, I just want to do like $3.5 million and chill. It's like, sick, dude. Great. Be excellent at this industry and this specific service. And just do that to $3.5 million, because that's really easy to do. But if my goal is to 10, 15, 20, 30 million in revenue, like, you have to. Like, I think that legitimately you have to push the envelope in terms of what you offer. You either got to expand industries, or you've got to expand what you offer. Over time, you get big enough, you get to do both. You know?
Yeah.
Scorpion's a good example of that. One of the largest agencies out there, digital agencies. They have niches, but they have lots of, and they have a lot of services. They don't just do SEO. They do SEO and SEM and content, all these things. So, yeah, I think you do. And I think
Abstract's a great example too.
Abstract's a really good example. So they do 80 million a year, whatever they're at. They'll do 100 in the next 2. And I think that for them, they've learned that they have to offer more than just one thing. And I've learned that, like I've learned that I don't just want to build a sales operation and walk away. I want to build a sales operation. I want to help you with hiring. I want to be a fractional sales leader on top of that. We now offer the actual lead generation, because all the other lead generation companies are retarded. Excuse my language. If anyone has... Sorry. A lot of them are struggling. And so we've now decided to launch that. What's funny is, like, I ran Tribe, and Tribe was like so minor leagues to what this is and what it's going to be, because we're just, one, I'm just more educated. 2, we have a rockstar team to do it. But 3, we have the layer of like fractional VP of sales and the sales operation and training for the AEs who get the leads, so that leads don't fall through and you'll just send leads from a lead gen company into a black hole. All this long thing to say is, I've now learned, like, I want to own the data. And I want you to pay for it, because we can get you the cleanest, best gas to put into the vehicle. I want to build the vehicle. You can own it, but I want to build it. I want to get paid to build it. I want to be the driver, the VP of sales of the vehicle. You can replace me, so you're going to lease the driver, but ultimately, like, I'm the best person, or our fractional VP is the best person to drive that vehicle, at least for a season. I want to own now the SDR lead generation function, because it's so broken and we fixed it. And so I want to own that too. And so when I do that, you can get rid of one service, but you're not going to get rid of all. Or you can get rid of all of them and you're going to be up shit creek, right?
It's the vision, though, right? Like, it's the vision for what you want your life and your business to be. It's a bigger vision, right? Or even just the problem you want to solve and the size of that problem that leads you to then acquire other companies and build out additional service lines and those kind of things.
Yes.
I really like that answer a lot. It does come back to what you want, as do most things in life. So if you don't know what that is, then you should probably figure that out first.
Yep.
Data, you've talked about it a few different times, and you talked about how a lot of these providers suck, right? So there's obviously, like, the option to come leverage phone-ready leads, right? We're doing something completely different. We talked about how this is the micro... What did you say? The micro filter that purifies your gas.
The nano filter.
Nano filter. What other solutions are there, man? Like, because I think for a long time it was, and this is going back a few years, it was like, okay, do you want to settle for like one of the lesser tier data providers that you can pay a subscription to, or are you going to pony up and go invest in Zoom Info? And I think what you're saying at this point is they all kind of suck.
Yeah, they all suck in different ways. It's really interesting.
What do you do? How do you not suck?
Well, first I'll talk about why a lot of them are sucking, right? So you have like your lower tier data providers, which is like your Seamless.ai or IO. One of those, Seamless.
It's AI.
And then you've got your Apollo.io, which good in some ways, terrible in others. But they're comparable to Zoom Info, but they're way cheaper than Zoom Info, so I would go with Apollo before I go with Zoom Info. And then you've got your Rightbounds, you've got which are newer players in the space, and you've got Lead IQ, and you've got all these other like providers. And you've got ZoomInfo, which is in Cognizant, which are more like the higher end. The challenge with a lot of these is that they all have different issues. Whereas one provider might have a much larger TAM, right? Access to contacts.
Yep.
They might have a lot more bad data, meaning I have the people, but my contact data is trash.
Yep.
Or they might have a smaller TAM access, but they have really sound data, right? The algorithm or the AI that they use to scrape the data or scrape the internet or whatever is not updating stuff in live time enough. And so you're calling on a lot of people who, right person, was the right company, but they left the company, right?
3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're still showing up in searches. And so there's this interesting dynamic of all the things that are wrong. So what should you do? Well, one...
Real quick, can I give... let me give one little anecdote.
Yeah, please.
For those people who are like, hey, you're just making this stuff up. It's like, well, no. We've worked with every single one of those providers, and we've run data from every single one of those providers through PRL system of validating leads of, hey, what contacts are the right contacts? What phone numbers are the right phone numbers? Who actually picks up? And we're able to see exactly what you said, which is, hey, they've got the biggest data set. They can reach the most people, but we've got the set like a 7% validation rate for this bucket of people versus, hey, we put 500 contacts into this, this provider here. We only get 50 contacts back where they've actually got enriched data for them. Yeah, but those 50 contacts, it's like 4x what the other one is in terms of its potency. So anyways, we've tested this stuff. We've run a lot. So it's not just numbers you're throwing out there or non-substantiated evidence. All right. So what should you do about it? Sorry.
It's so hard to even give an answer without like telling you that's going to cost a fuck ton of money. That's the hard part. Is because the real answer is you need to have an account identification process. Meaning I need to be able to find accounts that look like the people that I want to sell to. Because if you can get 1,000 accounts by pulling a list off of Sales Navigator or whatever, but 250 of those are nowhere near your ICP, then is that worth your time? No. Is it worth you spending less money on that list because it was quick than it was to build a smaller list that's exact, right? The first is you got to have an account identification process. Secondly, you've got to have a contact or persona identification process. And then you've got to have a contact enrichment process, which actually gets you the most up-to-date, likely to be accurate data. And then we take it a step further with PRL and we score that and we know which channels they're likely to convert on or to be reached on. But I would say that process is basically called a waterfall process. To some degree, right? There's different definitions for a waterfall process, but it's basically like you're pulling data from different sources into one source and you're having to kind of like piece it together in the most enriched version.
Yeah.
So I say that to say that's not a cheap process to do. It's why we offer now as a service because we can do it at an economies of scale that you can't do on your own without signing up for I will pay $40,000 for this software right here, whereas you will pay $40,000 for 10% of the data that I get access to, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works. So I don't really have a great answer outside of, and there's, something we're doing too is like there is the manual aspect of we pull the list from here, we pull the list from here. And I get 200 accounts, but only 130 of those accounts have people attached to them. Well, then we now are building a manual team to go manually find those other 70.
Yeah.
So that we have a larger TAM to go after. And so I don't think that's a very encouraging answer. Now, here's the other thing is you don't have to do all that. You can deal with shitty data. Right? You're just going to have to adjust your numbers accordingly. You're going to have to maybe increase your volume accordingly. Maybe have different tech that can, dial more numbers, in a short amount of time, which I don't suggest, but, or you can take shitty data and send it to PRL. We'll tell you it's shitty data, but you'll at least know what the good data is in there and you don't have to waste your time on shitty data.
Yeah. And if you do that enough, you'll get an idea for what you can expect. what that data costs you, what your cost per lead subsequently is, and then can you withstand that or not?
Right.
Is this a viable long-term strategy for you using this data or not? Okay, that's good. So not one great answer, but I think maybe a deeper understanding for people.
I wish
who
it were
like,
freaking easy. Well, I don't.
It's honestly
it's a huge moat for us that when we solve this,
we get paid more to solve it. Yeah. But yeah, there's not a one size fits all or even a many sizes fit you solution for this outside of cobbling it together on your own or paying a shit ton for somebody to do it for you. So, okay. I got two more questions. Well, we got a fun call with our new team coming up in a second here. So I'll end with this. I'll tease out a few things for next week. So we haven't talked sales process in a long time. So I want to kind of unpack that and look at different like what sales processes are important to have. How should you think through building out and documenting these? Why are they important? And then I also want to talk about closers. It's the one role. We talked a lot about SDRs. We talked a little bit about account executive follow-up, kind of maybe the same terminology, but like in an actual high-ticket B2B closer, what are you looking for? How do you hire this person? How do you source them? How do you hold them accountable? So we'll talk about those two things for sure next week. To wrap this episode on a fun note, are you all in? Are you all in on Vivek 2024?
Oh, man. Yes, I am. I'm all in. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, is the ultimate modern-day candidate.
I think so too, man. Tell me why. Tell me why, Joey.
Because he's anti-establishment, which I think you have to be if you want to truly take back the country. For those who don't know what establishment is basically they follow the typical path. They are typically funded and owned by the donors. They do things based on a few elite people's opinions who are in their pocket. Most of our government is establishment nowadays, unfortunately. And so what I love about Vivek and what I love about Trump, there are things about Trump I don't love, but Vivek is basically the polished, young, likable, not polarizing, actually empathetic version of Trump that I freaking love. And he's a freaking minority, dude. Like he's the package. He's
all the points.
He's the package. He needs to be like a lesbian or something, and that might push him over the edge. But he is up there. Dude, I love him, and I think he's soaring in the rankings right now. He's tied for second with DeSantis. If Trump does in fact get locked up or whatever, can't run, I think he will eventually take the Republican ticket. And I think he will win. However, I think that if Trump does not get in the trouble that people want him to get into on the left, which he won't, let's be honest, Trump will run and he will win in a landslide. But I do think Vivek will take that VP spot.
I love it, man. I actually, there's a really good, you were talking about anti-establishment. There was a really good interview that I saw. So Patrick Bet-David, who you've mentioned multiple times on the show, is doing a kind of like a panel discussion with, who's the Young Turks guy? Sank something.
Oh, Cenk. Yeah.
I
forget his last name.
So they're having a dialogue around.
Great episode, by the way.
Oh, it's so good. And they're both agreeing on to me, the most important premise. So, Cenk he's liberal, progressive.
Yeah. I would say he's a moderate. Moderate Democrat.
Well, yeah, because in modern day terms, moderate Democrat's a better way to describe him. Yeah, and then you've got Patrick Bet-David, who leans a lot more to the right, but still very much like free thinking, not like a flaming conservative, hyper conservativist.
Yeah, he's not like aggressive. What some would say, you're teetering on the line of racism or whatever.
Yeah, but they both agree that the establishment is broken and the establishment is the problem. Now, who the right person is to address that, or how they feel about Trump being the predominant person to solve this problem or to push back, like they've got different stances on Trump, the man, or some of these candidates, but they both have written books on and agree after doing a ton of research and both being worth, I think, 9 figures, right? So they've got access. They both understand the landscape. But they both agree that the establishment is the problem and it's broken. And I think hearing them dialogue around that, I'm like, man, so they both approach issues from kind of opposite views. They're both relatively moderate, but they can agree on the fact that the establishment is one of the big issues.
Yes.
So really, really interesting. All right.
Yeah,
well,
I thought it was a great
Vivek
episode.
pushes back on that. You're a Vivek campaign contributor, I believe, which is exciting.
Yep.
So thumbs up to you. I'll continue to contribute by watching his content.
Should.
Maybe one day I'll pony up and put my money where my mouth is.
Share with people like
I
your
will.
dad and stuff. It's like, oh, here's a legit
Oh, no,
candidate.
he's on the train, man. He thinks there's no way he can win, but he's like, dude, I love this
My
guy.
parents
So
said the same. My mom was like, he's not going to win with that name. And then she watched him and he goes, but he's so good.
Dude, did you see that his banner? Oh, it's so good. If you haven't noticed this, it's so good. His big banner behind him at all of these town halls. You know the big blue white lettered Trump sign, TRUMP, all caps?
Yeah, it's as I say, truth.
Same font, same style, and it says truth. And I think it's such a good
Smart.
play on
It's so smart.
what Trump's doing. All right, man, we got to wrap this up again. Big congratulations to you. Really excited about what the future holds. To those of you who've been rolling with us, I'm sure you're excited for Joey as well, unless you're just a hater who listens to the show. So give us some feedback in the comments. Come check us out, see what we're doing with the press release. Check out what we're doing at Apex Revenue. And as always, really appreciate your time and attention. Hope you learned something that you can take away and build it into your business or your life. Until next week, as always, rate, review, subscribe. Leave us a comment, but we'll see you back next Friday for another episode of the Best Damn Agency Podcast.
Boom.
Later. Let's go get the FU Cheese meeting, bro.
Let's do it.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah.